لله الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا ثم الحمد لله الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد ثم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. عباد الله، قال الله تعالى في الكتاب المبين بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لقد خلقنا الإنسان في كبد. وبعد. It seems as though everywhere that we look, whether it is on the television, or we listen to the radio, or we read the news, that there is some sort of criticism that is being applied to the Muslim community. A lot of us are on Facebook, we are online, we're on social media, and a lot of us, if you're like me at all, you get a little bit frustrated, a little bit tired, and even just exhausted by seeing all of the criticism that is being put onto the Muslim Ummah as a whole for the actions of a few. That people are taking an opportunity when someone does an incredibly inhumane or stupid act, like murder somebody incorrectly in the name of Islam, falsely in the name of Islam, then all of a sudden people like Bill Maher or other political pundits, or just in general, YouTube comments, etc., can come and say, oh, see, this is what Islam is. This is what Muslims do. This is who they are. And what's interesting is that when we think about it, if we look at the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we find that the hyper-criticism of the Muslim community is not something new. This idea that people will always be looking at Muslims and always be looking at Islam, and people will always be wondering what it makes it so unique and why is it so different. And people will have bad intentions trying to, quote-unquote, disprove Islam or make Islam look in a worse light. This is not something that's new. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have Bill O'Reilly, we have Fox News and Bill Maher. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab. That there have always been people surrounding the believers, around the Muslimin, who will always offer their opinions. But now that we've understood, and now that we know that this is a fact, that this is historically a fact, how then did the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam respond to these kind of actions? How did he respond to these kind of claims? In today's day and age, we love to educate people. We want to educate. We invite non-Muslims, come to our masjid, learn about Islam, learn who we really are, learn what we really believe. We have across campuses across the United States of America, we have Islamic Awareness Week, which is a week where students get together and propose a week full of programs where people can come and learn what really does Islam teach about life, our purpose, the universe, etc. And all of these things are wonderful. Then you have people who take it a step further, where they actually like to engage in some sort of debate, some sort of jihad, some sort of argument about religion, comparative religion. People go on YouTube and watch videos of Ahmed Didat, rahmatullahi alayh. They watch videos of Zakir Naik. They watch all these videos. Hamza Sort says, I want to prove that Islam is right. However, brothers and sisters, if you look and inspect and study the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you see that this methodology was not the methodology that he engaged to convince people. This methodology was not the methodology that he engaged to correct people. He had a different way of doing things. And if we think that our way of doing things is better, or that we can have a way that is different, then we are misunderstanding what it means to follow the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, the Sunnah is something that is universal. It will always be relevant. You may have to apply different parts of it in different ways, but the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there will never come a time on earth where you can say, oh, this Sunnah does not apply to us today. Right? That's part of our belief as Muslims, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's practice is universal, it's classic, it's timeless. And so when we look at his life, we find, how did he engage with people who wanted nothing more than to hurt Islam? You know, I mean, this is a very, very interesting topic. And people back then, by the way, they used to believe that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was right, but they had these deep-seated anger issues. There's a very famous story of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that you find in the books of Tariq, in the books of history, Bidayah wa Nihaya, and so on. Of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he was walking once in the streets of Mecca. And for those of you who may or may not know, in the Meccan phase of the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, there was not a lot of people that accepted him or that encouraged his message. At the time of Hijrah, some scholars narrate that there were only about 83 people. So there were more people in this masjid right now than there were at the time of Hijrah to Medina. Right? Incredible when you think about the numbers. And so the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was walking one day in a society that was generally not for him. And people would constantly do things against him. You hear the stories of how people would leave dead animal carcasses on his front step. You hear the stories about how people would leave garbage on his front step. That when he was praying one time, ﷺ, someone put the body of a dead animal on his back while he was in sajda. And his daughter began to cry. His daughter Fatima, radiallahu anha, she began to cry. And she began to pull it off of him. And she began to curse those people. And he looked at her and said, "Do not cry, Fatima. It's okay. Just be patient." The way he dealt with things was so incredible. One day he was walking in the streets of Mecca and he saw this elderly woman that was packing up her things. And the story is narrated with a decent chain. It's not authentic, it's not weak, it's hasan, it's okay, it's good to take. But for Falad, it's okay. And so he was walking in the streets and he sees this elderly woman, very old lady, and she's packing up her things. I want you to imagine that you're walking here in West Lafayette and you see a U-Haul truck and there's an old lady that's just packing up all of her things into the U-Haul truck. The first thing that crosses your mind is, why isn't anyone helping this lady? Like, an old woman should not be doing this by herself. I mean, one person alone should never be moving by themselves. Even when you're moving, you always call friends. But especially an elderly woman who's frail should never be attempting to do this by herself. And so the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had this same thought. He stopped and he says to her, "Ya Ummi," which means my mother. And she wasn't actually his mother. His mother passed away when he was 6, ﷺ, but out of respect, out of ihtiram, to give her a status of respect. And this is how we talk to people, ﷺ, which is the first lesson in da'wah, is that if we're going to talk to people, we have to put them on a pedestal. We have to respect people. If you want someone to listen to your message, you have to engage them in a way that makes them want to listen to your message. Condescension, looking down at people, telling people that, "Oh, this is wrong, how could you believe this?" That's not a good way to engage people, right? Calling people names, etc. If ever, and this works especially in marital relationships, in family relationships, when you get into an argument with your wife or your husband or your kids or your parents. Using harsh language is not a good way to get your point across. What you're doing is you're actually just pulling yourself away from each other even more. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he addressed her, he wanted to use language that would sprout love in her heart for him. So he says, "Ya Ummi," my mother. He says, what seems to be the problem? Why are you packing up your things? Where are you going? And she says, "Ya Ibni," which means my son. And is he actually her son? No. But since he approached her with love, she's responding with love. So elders, when young people come to you and they try, give them a good reward for their effort. She says, "Ya Ibni," my son. She says, "There's this man who has come to this city, and I've grown up in this city since I was young. And he's spreading this message that's tearing families apart. Fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, people are all arguing about who to believe, whether or not they should believe the people of their forefathers, or they should take this message of this man, Muhammad." She has no idea who she's speaking to. She has no idea who she's talking to. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ at that moment, right, he's being insulted. He's being called a liar. She's saying she doesn't want to live in a city with this man, Muhammad ﷺ. At that moment, he could have done a few things, right? He could have handed her a pamphlet and said, no, we're having Islamic Awareness Week at Purdue University next week, inshallah, please stop by. He could have made dua, Allahumma lightning bolt, ameen, right, and just destroyed her, right? He's a Nabi of Allah. He can make dua and it'll be accepted. But instead, what does he do? This is the method of da'wah. This is the sunnah of how to make da'wah. So he engages her and he says to her, "I'm sorry you feel that way. If you feel that way, I apologize. Right? I'm sorry that you feel in your own city that you don't feel at home anymore. I wish you would stay, but if you made your decision to leave because of this message that this man is preaching, then at least allow me to help you with your things." And she says, "Ya Ibni, that would be so kind." And so the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ offers her free service, a free moving service. He's giving up his day to help her pack her house and move her to where she wants to go. And the whole time he's working, she's talking about this man Muhammad, about how he's this, he's that, he's breaking up families. So he packs up her things, they take this journey, and they go out to the city that's far away on the outskirts of Mecca. And they sit out there, and she says, here, this is where I want to live. And he says, here, she says, here. So then he says, Ya Ummi, allow me to help you set up your things. You're going to take too long, it's almost night, you should not be by yourself. And she says, Ya Ibni, that would be so kind. So he begins to set up her house. He builds her house, he puts her things in their place. Then finally, after hours of work, after using an entire day, he says to her, Ya Ummi, do you have anything else that you would like me to do? She says, Ya Ibni, of course, there's no way I could ask you. I feel so humbled and indebted. How kind of you to help me in this day. And she says, Ya Ibni, thank you so much. He says, Ya Ummi, if you have nothing else left for me to do, then can I please take your permission and go? Look, he's asking her permission to leave. Can I please take your permission and leave? She says, Ya Ibni, of course. So he turns and he says, you know what, I'll see you later, take care. He begins to walk back towards Mecca. After a few steps, she calls out to him. She says, hold on 1 second. He turns around. She says, this whole time you've been helping me. You saw me, you offered to help, you packed my things, you carried my things, and now you built my house and helped me. This whole time you've been helping me, you haven't told me what your name is, who you are. He said, I am the Muhammad that you hate so much. She said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu annaka abduhu wa rasuluh. He did not give her any discussion about Tawheed, about Aqidah, about Iman, about Sunnah, about anything, Quran, nothing. All he did was serve her. And in that khidmah, in that service, she saw the character of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and verily you are on top of, and ala, the preposition here, in Arabic means that you own it. Like when you're on top of an animal, you are on top of that thing, you direct where it goes. You own that animal's movements. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ala, right, he didn't say indik, he didn't say with you, right? He said, ala, you are on top of it. You own good character, meaning what? You are an example of what good khuluq is. You are a perfect example. And there was once I was living one time in Dallas, Texas, when I was working there as an assistant imam, and I went to a Kroger. My wife was out of town for the weekend, and so I went to go get myself some dinner, so I got some cereal, right? And so anyway, I went to the checkout line, the counter, and I put everything on the counter, and I was wearing this thobe, like a thobe like this, right? I normally don't wear thobes out in like the society. I usually just wear normal clothes, but I happened to be coming from the masjid. And the lady, she saw me. And my dad, may Allah protect our mothers and fathers, my dad, he taught me out of good character when you engage with somebody in conversation, ask them, how are you? How are you doing today, right? This is my young kid. So I put the cereal on the counter and I said, hi, how's it going? How are you? And she said, oh my God. I was shocked. I was like, what did I do? She goes, I've had the worst day ever. And here I am saying, I'm so hungry. I don't want to listen to this right now, right? I just want to go home and eat my cereal and go to sleep, right? But she sees me, and now she says, I've had the worst day ever. So I said, I'm really sorry to hear that. Like, what happened? And she told me the whole story. Like, she was late for work, her boyfriend broke up with her cat died, like, just terrible things all around, right? And after about 10 minutes of just explaining to me how difficult her day was, she says, you're the first person to ask me how I was doing today. And it was like 9 o'clock at night. You're the first person this whole day that's asked me, how are you? Allahu A'lam, and we hope and pray for the best. But maybe the fact that I looked apparently like a Muslim, I have a beard, I was wearing this Muslim type dress, and then I asked her how she was, maybe that was a good step for her to see Muslims in a good light. Because this Muslim person that was buying cereal at 9:30 p.m. had the decency and courtesy to ask me how I was. Brothers and sisters, the solution to Islamophobia, the solution to this rampant fear and this semi-hatred of Islam It doesn't lie within debate. It doesn't lie within education solely. It lies within interaction. Every one of you, every single person in this room, myself included, we interact with so many people on a daily basis. We interact with, number one, our families. We interact with our coworkers, classmates, professors. Then we interact with people who work in the service industry. You go get coffee, you go get food, you interact with somebody. And then at the greatest level, you just interact with society. You're walking past, you open the door, there's people walking behind you, you hold open the door for them. This akhlaq, this adab, these good characteristics are the best way to teach people how Islam really wants humanity to live. And in a day and age where good akhlaq and good adab are becoming extinct, are things that are disappearing, the way that young people talk to their parents, the way that co-workers talk to each other, the way that people treat one another is getting so bad that Islam and good Islamic akhlaq is going to become that bright candle in the dark room to show people that this is how our Prophet taught us how to live. And don't underestimate the way that you treat people. You know, there's a famous saying, people do not remember what you tell them, they remember how you made them feel. People will remember not what you told them, but how you made them feel. Did you make them feel good? When they're talking to you, did you make eye contact with them and listen to them? Did you actually understand, and did you have a conversation, or were you looking at your phone the whole time? What are the ways that we interact with society? And so there's a couple ways that, inshallah, to conclude the khutbah, that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he teaches us and we learn how to prepare ourselves for this moment. Number one is that, like we've said in the story previously, we have to have good akhlaq. We have to work with ourselves. And the only way to establish good akhlaq is by first understanding where we lack. Where are my deficiencies? What things do I need to work on? And especially in regards to those closest with us. You know, we tend to think that da'wah is only to society. No, da'wah is also to our closest family members. People that potentially could have questions, doubts, or even just want to leave the community altogether. And it happens all too much. It's a secret that no one talks about. That young people, spouses, etc., they end up leaving Islam, running away. Why? Because the way they were treated in their home. Because the way they were raised in their home. You know, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has a remarkable story with his daughter Fatima radiallahu anha, where he's sitting with his companions, his sahaba radiallahu anhum, and he's sitting with them, and they're having a very serious discussion. And Fatima comes in radiallahu anha, and she comes and she sits, and she basically says to her dad, like, Dad, right? Like, you know how young children are with their parents. And even at times where it's not appropriate. So the dad's having a meeting, the kid comes in and says, Dad. And so the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he tells his companions, normally what do we do in that situation? We tell the kid, hey, go play in the other room, get the iPad, go, I'll be there in an hour, just go, right? The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ looks to his companions and he says to them, guys, give me a few minutes. He takes Fatima radiallahu anha, he sits her down, their knees are touching, and he says to her, how are you? How's your day? And they have a whole conversation. Then after a little bit, he says, okay, I need you to go. I'm going to continue my conversation with these men right now. Look at how he interacted with her, right? Whenever I have a young person come to me, a young Muslim, male or female, and they say, I have doubts about Islam, I don't want to be Muslim anymore, X, Y, Z, the first question I ask them, how's your relationship with your parents? The first question I ask them. Because the relationship with parents will oftentimes define the spiritual trajectory of the young person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. In that dua, he's making a comparison between the Rabbaniyah of Allah and the Rabbaniyah of the parents. That Allah himself is giving a word, Rabb, to the parents. كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. Like they raised me when I was young. So what do we learn from that? That the way parents raise their kids is going to have a profound impact on their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the moment we understand that is the moment we're going to have better families. So number one, da'wah to the family. Have good akhlaq with your family. Don't take things for granted. I was once dealing with an elderly woman, 60 years old, came to me for counseling. She came to me for counseling and she said, I have a serious complaint about my husband. I said, what is it? She said, he never thanks me. He never thanks me. She said, since we've been married, there has not been one night where he's had to eat leftovers. Every night I make fresh meal for him. Every night. Fresh bread. Every night I make it for him with the atta, the dough, the flour and the dough. She goes, I make fresh chapatis for him every night. And not once has my husband said to me, thank you. This is so good. Thank you so much. So I asked the husband, I said, is this true? He says, yeah. I was shocked. He was so confident, like he admitted it. I'm like, is this true? You expect him to say, like, no, I thank her all the time. He said, yeah, it's true. I was shocked. I said, well, what do you think? I mean, your wife is clearly hurt. She's upset. He says, well, you know, I eat it, don't I? If I eat it, that means I like it, right? And if I'm eating it and I like it, that's like saying thank you, right? I said, you have a long way to go, Uncle. You have a long, I've only been married for 6 years, mashallah, and I know a little more than that already. You have a long way to go. The point is not to laugh at people, but the point is to understand that the way we treat those closest to us can sometimes be abuse in and of itself. That we sometimes treat strangers, we focus on strangers, society, dawah, and we don't focus on dawah in our home. We have to make sure that we establish good atmosphere of Islam in our home, and then we move outward, inshallah. So number one, good akhlaq. Have good manners. Admit. Don't be in denial. Don't say, I don't have this problem, I don't have this problem, I don't have this problem. The person who never admits that they are sick will never go to the doctor and get the shifa. Will never go get the cure. But the person who admits they're sick and goes to the doctor and identifies at an early stage the disease that they have, that's the best chance for cure in the medical situation. It's the same with spirituality. It's the same with your iman. When you can identify and get over the fear of owning your deficiency, then the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, the advice of the ulama, the good companionship of the pious people, that will implement and be a remedy for our bad character. The next characteristic, so first is good akhlaq. Second is that we have to gain knowledge. You know, because I have light skin, because my dad is American, I'm half white. Whenever a fresh, convert or a non-Muslim comes to our masjid, everyone takes him by the shoulders and directs him to me. And says, here. And I say, what? And here, teach him. And I asked the person, I said, why don't you teach him? He said, I don't know enough about Islam. If you know enough to practice Islam, then you should know enough to teach someone about Islam. We should not always have this papal type of relationship where we take people to the scholar of the imam. Some of the best converts and best experiences with Islam that I've ever heard of were people who work in IT or people who work in healthcare. Because they maybe are not shuyukh, they're maybe not ulama, they're maybe not a'imma, but they know enough about their deen to tell people, I believe that Allah is one, I believe that Muhammad is his messenger, and I believe this. Very simple. If you are practicing Islam, you know enough about Islam. But that journey cannot stop. You have to seek more knowledge. You have to add some sort of regimen to your life where you can gain more knowledge every day. If it's 10 minutes a day, while you're driving, listen to a little lecture. While you're at work, read a hadith and read some commentary on the hadith. Listen to some scholars, how they explain the hadith. Just a little bit. You don't have to sit for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Just a little bit every day. Because if you do a little bit every day, then in the entire week, you've done a lot. But if we neglect a little bit every day, then in the entire week, we've lost a huge opportunity. And the reason why knowledge is important is because your good character is going to attract people. And when they come to you seeking answers, seeking knowledge, you need to have that knowledge available. Like if you wear a white lab coat and a stethoscope, actually, wallahi, this happened to me. I travel sometimes in scrubs, the doctor's pants, because they're so comfortable. But the problem when you travel in scrubs is everyone thinks you're a doctor. So if someone on the plane is having a medical emergency, they look and see me, they're like, doctor, and I'm like, I'm not a doctor. I'm sorry, right? So if we have good akhlaq, but we don't have knowledge, people will be like, I'm magnetically attracted to you, like, there's something different about your character, what is it? And if we don't have the answer, then we're going to let them down. So we have to seek knowledge. Then the third step, so first akhlaq, second is ilm, third is islah, tazkiyah. We have to make sure that we do more good deeds in private than we do in public. We have to make sure that our ihsan is in check. that we are worshiping Allah, that we are praying on time, and that we fast occasionally, we give sadaqah, we pray qiyam when we can, etc. These things. Why? Because whenever you do things only for the public eye, then it's like a nice shiny red apple with a rotten core. Have you ever been to an apple that had a rotten core? It's like the worst experience. You know why? Not only because it's rotten, but because you thought it was healthy. And so when someone engages somebody, and they have all the outer manifestations, if I have all the outer manifestations of good akhlaq and knowledge, but I don't actually have what it takes, the more people get to know me, the more they're going to be disappointed. And the more people get to know you, inshallah, the more they'll be impressed. Why? Because inshallah, we're going to have that islah, that tazkiyah on our personal basis. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us success. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the ability to be the best du'at, to represent Islam the best through our action, our knowledge, and our iman. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to benefit ourselves and benefit others and be a guide for ourselves and a guide for humanity. قل قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على إمام الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين اللهم اجعلنا منهم آمين. Now that we've discussed some good key action points for how to properly represent Islam, I have one suggestion for everybody, myself included, about how to really take a step forward today. Like, what are we going to walk out of the masjid today, learning and doing that's going to change ourselves? All of the steps that I listed, character, knowledge, and Islah, can be found in a variety of subjects, in Quran and Tafsir, in different things. I would recommend that along with reading your Quran on a daily basis, that you also implement and study the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the best of your ability. The seerah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has stories that give us such great lessons and virtues, and the way, the example that he gives us, we also learn that as well. So everything comes in one package, and it's easy to remember. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blesses the story when He says, نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses stories Himself, what does that tell us about the power of a story? That when we learn the narrative of the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad, we will become enlightened, and we will understand how to better act in this life. And so I would recommend, there are many books, there are many outlets. My teacher, Sheikh Abdul Nasser Jenda, has a seerah podcast. It's online. It's 1 hour a week, and you can listen to it while you're driving. It's beautiful. Search for Qalab Institute Seerah podcast. It's free. Just download it and study and learn about the seerah. There's over 100 hours available now. Over 100 hours. Just listen to it while you're walking on campus. Listen to it while you're driving the car. Listen to it while you're at home, just relaxing. 1 hour a week, inshallah ta'ala, is not too much to ask for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to embody the character of the Prophet Muhammad. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the ability to practice what we've said and heard. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us love of Him, love of the Prophet Muhammad, and we ask Allah to grant us His love and the love of things that He loves. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us good character, good adab, good knowledge, and good worship. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of those in this gathering, those who are here, those who wanted to make it but cannot be here. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure our sick, to forgive those who have passed away. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to uplift the oppression from our brothers and sisters all over the world, in Syria, in Palestine, in Central Africa, in Afghanistan, in Bangladesh, in all over the world, and here in America. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure all of these people from their oppression, to give them lightness from their dark. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make things easy upon them and give them patience as they endure this trial. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون أقيموا الصلاة